Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us today for our presentation on Where Do You Fit, looking at role-based solutions with UX1. My name is Mike Guerin. I'm going to be the main presenter today, and I am joined today by Doug McCarthy, my good friend and confidant, who's also an owner and the VP of Sales and Operations of Team Kane. Doug's going to be the man behind the curtain today, so we'll be fielding questions and making sure that I stay on track.
And another quick note, Mike, I was informed by one of our favorite customers that today is National Talk Like a Pirate Day. So anything that I need to say, I will be talking like a pirate, just to let you know.
Billy, well, it might be hard for me to do the whole presentation like this, but I'll
try. Anyway, so that's my shot, and thanks for the shout out from the customer on that. A little bit of housekeeping. Everybody is in listen-only mode for today. We will, as a matter of course, stop several times for any questions that you have. So as we're going along and you think of some questions, just submit them with the question panel that's on the right-hand side of your screen, the GoToWebinar control panel. We are also recording this session, so if you want to get a replay of it to watch at your leisure, or if there's others in your organization that would have liked to attend but we're tied up with Monday and things like meetings, let us know when we reach back out to you afterwards. We'll be happy to share the recording and, of course, also the slide deck. As we always do on our webinars, there is a brief survey at the end just looking for some feedback from you. If you're kind enough to help us out with a response on it, we will, as we always do a draw from the people who responded and give a choice of a $30 gift card to one of the respondents. So, in terms of your presenters today, my name's Mike Guerin. My picture is out of date. I actually lost my mustache. Well, I didn't lose it. I shaved it off, but the same thing a couple of months ago. I've actually been in JD Edwards over 35 years. I spent about 10 years at JD Edwards directly, starting as a consultant, finishing as the Director of Services in Canada. When Enterprise One or One World first came out, I was the launch manager for Canada as well. So coming up in 20 years in this space with that. I'm also a very, very, very happy Quest ambassador. I'm a vendor advisory committee member. And as any of you who have spoken to me know, I'm a huge supporter of Quest in the community. So Doug, Ironman, if you want to take a minute and introduce yourself.
All right, thank you, Mike. So I am VP of Sales and Operations at Team Kane. I've been here for almost exactly 3 years. Before that, I was on the corporate IT side for a couple of different companies, Damon Worldwide and World Wrestling Entertainment. Started my JE career on the CNC side, and I've been doing that for around 17 years.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. So this is a bit new. Just a quick little one in here. I'm calling it I've got a very curious mind, which obviously, when you're working with JD Edwards and technology, probably put you in good stead. I'm seeing interesting things on a regular basis. So just a quick this has nothing to do with the presentation, but did you know that if you removed all of the empty space in the atoms that are in our bodies, the entire human race, not just you or me, but the entire human race, so over 7 billion people, would fit inside one sugar cube? Isn't that interesting? So just a little bit of arcane knowledge for you today, something to talk about at the family dinner table tonight. Back to the real program. In terms of the agenda, UX1 is all about transforming the user experience. So we'll touch on some of the main things around that. We'll take a look at the role-based solutions and the intentions of them and highlight several and the intention behind them. We're going to spend time then on the core components. So personal forms, springboards, analytics, E1 pages, watch list, Cafe One, etc. I'm going to switch over to our demo system then and give a quick tour through some roles and some capabilities within UX1. I'm going to touch on security and some of the implications and things that you need to be aware of with UDOs or UDOs, as they are officially called. We covered that off in a bit more detail in a webinar that we held last month. A couple of slides and other items and considerations, including the new enterprise search capabilities. Spend a little bit of time on our favorites and getting to 9.2x, because a lot of this is about features and capabilities that is in the 9.2x and some of them more specifically the 9.2.15 tools, and a little bit at the end about Team Kane. And just as Mr. Puzzle piece in the bottom there says, or on the right-hand side, this is an overview. It's not actually training. So the idea behind UX1, this is the user experience. It's about letting people within an organization work the way that they would like to do so and make it easier for them. So a lot of different examples of that. From a user experience side, UX1, if you're not familiar with it, it's a brand name for the user experience for Enterprise One. So of course, you need to come up with, in this day and age, fancy terms for it. And I personally think UX1 is probably at least a 3-beer out of the 5-beer scale naming for it. So why is UX1 out there? Well, it allows overall users within the business to spend more time managing exceptions and not rooting through paper and death by inquiry screens. It certainly makes Enterprise One more efficient for existing users, and it makes it, probably as importantly, more appealing to new and existing users. We've worked with a number of customers who have been on the fence about whether to stick with JD Edwards, and it's largely because they're on old releases. They don't know what they don't know. When we talk to them about the capabilities and show them the capabilities within UX1, it's amazing how quickly things turn around. UX1 leverages what is called alert, analyze, and act, and we'll see this on the composed pages when we look at them. First, it's alerting users about situations that they need to be aware of. Secondly, it's giving them dynamic analytics that lets them change their mind on stuff, view information in a graphical format. It's something that's a little bit easier to digest. Also let them change their mind and drill down a bit more and actually drill down into the details. And on the right-hand side, the ACT part gives a direct path to commonly used items that people would use. So if you're familiar with E1 Pages, and the idea behind that was putting common tasks that any user would have to do, this is taking it and putting it on steroids, quite honestly. So again, what UX1 gives you, first of all, it's out of the box. We'll touch on the implications of that a bit later on, but this truly is out of the box. Everything that we'll be showing you today is delivered. So the alert, analyze, and act with the watch lists on the left, the analytics in the center, and the act or springboard on the right. You also, with it, on the bottom left-hand corner, extending and creating this, users have the ability to be able to do an awful lot of personalization in here. Forms personalization is something that has just come out. A lot of people are not necessarily familiar with. We will be showing and touching on that a bit. Also, the ability for queries, to be able to create your own watch lists, your own OneView reports. The final part on the right-hand, bottom right, is the cross-application search, and that's a brand new feature. We're not necessarily going to show you that, but we'll show you a little tidbit of it that you might not be aware is there. The whole idea behind UX1 is letting better decision-making happen. So if you give people what they need to concentrate on, they'll be able to focus on it a lot more and not spend a lot of time bouncing around. We truly believe that with the right combination of roles and composed pages, any individual user should be able to spend the vast majority of their time on that one page. You're going to accelerate adoption, therefore, as well, because of the capabilities to be able to let users have control and also simplify things for users. This should reduce the IT backlog. Because you're combining everything, and particularly with things like forms personalization, you should be able to reduce the number of process steps. Given that you've simplified everything else, this should simplify your upgrade as well, and this should absolutely shorten user training. So as per the little graphic on the bottom right-hand side, think of this as building blocks to get your organization and your users much more effective and much more efficient. So what are these UX1 roles? On the screen, there's a sampling of some of them. There's actually over 50 of them available right now. But AP manager, AR manager, credit manager, maintenance manager, procurement manager, warehouse manager, transportation manager, general accounting manager. Some of these are roles that we'll actually go and take a look at in our live system later on. At this point in time, there's over 129 composed pages, over 330 E1 pages, over 600 queries, over 300 watch lists, 90 Cafe 1s, and 147 grid formats that are available. And again, this is out of the box. Interesting on this, when from a personal perspective, like I mentioned, I've been in JD Edwards a long time. I've been a huge fan of watch lists and composed pages in Cafe 1 for quite a while. The struggle that we saw for adoption was the ability for people to understand and to start to build some of this themselves. We think it's a great idea on the part of Oracle to have delivered this out of the box. There is a price that you might need to pay depending upon how far you want to go with it, but it gives you so much that a lot of customers just would not adopt otherwise. So kudos to them. So how would this work? Well, if you're an AR manager, part of it is it's a more efficient AR process. You have to spend less time looking at what you need to look at because you're being alerted to what it is. You can be looking at analyzing receipt trends and payment trends and monitor and address payment issues. For a project manager, quicker views of project profitability, alerts on the financial performance, managing all aspects of the job through the project lifecycle. For benefits manager, track employee eligibility, see which ones are coming up, see what percentage of people have signed up for plans, get a better sense for the utilization and effectiveness. And the same applies for the other three sample roles there. We see as well for something like sales manager, combination of the UX1 content with mobile should help out for salespeople wandering around at customer sites an awful lot more. So what are the core components of UX1? Well, the foundation for a lot of it is OneView reports and OneView screens. As you will see when we dive down through some of the analytics side, what we're actually getting to is OneView inquiry screens. The new Page Composer is the one that brings all of this together. So if you're familiar with E1 Pages and being able to put buttons and things on there, this is taking it to a whole new level. The Composite Application Framework, or Cafe 1, I think most people are familiar with this by now, but this allows you to attach additional information on the side, bottom, or in multiple spots on a standard screen within Enterprise One. The watch lists, absolutely my favorite. I just love this concept and how they've enacted it. There's also list view grid format. So if you're familiar with grids and the single line per and death by scrolling to the right, the grid formats allowing you to have multiple lines per lines of detail per line of information and to be able to personalize it should help that out a lot. And the springboard for getting to the quick tasks. So, bit of details on a couple of them then. The personalized forms. This truly does, and there are some caveats, but allows users to simplify the applications dynamically without a lot of technical skills. As you'll see when I go and give a quick play around of it, it allows you to take something, for example, like the item master or the chart of accounts maintenance screen and rearrange the information, including getting rid of tabs, hiding fields, moving fields between tabs. So one of the bigger complaints we hear and one of the things we often see modifications done is forms. So this really simplifies it. You can create them. You can share them, in other words, request to publish them, and in a controlled manner, they can also be approved and then shared out to others within the organization. The Springboard. Adding Springboard to the composed pages gives you the task that a particular role or user is most likely to use and allows them, when they're looking at the information, either from the watch list or from the analytics page, to jump straight into the tasks that would be most likely for them to work with. You can launch Enterprise One applications, batch programs, ADF or Application Development Framework applications, and also OneView reports from there. So an awful lot of power and an awful lot of flexibility. So on a standard composed page, we see on the left the watch list, the analytics in the center, and the springboard or task items on the right. From an analytics side, this is built using Oracle's Java Extension Toolkit. So don't let that scare you. It provides an awful lot of power. With what's built for a normal user, they can, depending upon how it's been set up, do some personalization on it. And there's also the ability within the screen itself, because it's all about real estate, slide things in and out. One of the nice features is that the base query on which what's being presented is determined can be changed so that they can have a different view of it. You can do bar and pie charts, forms, data aggregation, data browser, service requests, complex queries, you name it. For visualizations, you can have things like calendars, locations or geo, and also relationship type things. And examples of that are on this screen. So the top left shows an example of a work order load. So that's got graphics with line charts and also with bar charts. The right-hand side is staff utilization in a calendarized format. Bottom left is manager location, or it could be an asset location. And the bottom right shows an organization chart format. So again, this is all using the capabilities that are in there, working with the data that you've got. Core components for this, the composed pages. So these are really E1 pages with user-defined layouts. And again, you can access multiple content types within a single page. That includes other web pages, E1 applications. The ones that are underlined and bolded here are the ones that you see on the role-based pages that are provided. So OneView reports and the graphical presentations of those. You can also have classic pages, designer panes, the watch list panes on the left, the springboard panes on the right, OBIE or Oracle Business Intelligence Enterprise Edition, and ADF applications. The watch list lets you know of the important things. You can define for them when you're creating the queries that are based on the watch list what the warning and critical errors are, and that will determine which ones show up blue or normal versus yellow or red. And it's based upon the queries that you set up for those areas of interest. So again, creating new ones is pretty straightforward. Cafe One, if you haven't played with it, this is another great thing. If you've got users that are bouncing between different screens, going from, for example, an item branch to an item availability, you can combine those screens on a single one. So you can update the item branch listing screen to show item availability for whichever row is being clicked on the right-hand side. Got one more screen, Doug, and then we can stop and see if there's any questions. So OneView reporting, or OVR as we tend to refer to it because we're all about acronyms in the technology space. It is the reporting engine for Enterprise One. You can get to it if you're familiar with E1 later incarnations from pretty much all the screens. It is intended to be a user tool, but like anything else that's good and powerful, there's some knowledge that is required and some training that helps. There are templates and report packs available. So for example, you could get the OneView reporting package for manufacturing or for financials or for plant and equipment. They are good value. What we've seen oftentimes is customers get one to get a sense for things and then use that as a springboard to be able to create their own. So you can license as many as you want. You can also start smaller. The minimum that you need for this is the OneView Reporting Foundation license. What's interesting on this is a casual user, and we've got examples of customers with this, can have OneView as the entry point for their needs and not needing to burn an actual user license. If you're on an enterprise license, it doesn't matter, but if you're concerned about licensed users, the OneView can give you access to the information that a casual user could benefit from without using an actual license. It is the foundation for OBIE and all of the other reports. The content is free, and particularly when we're talking about the UX1 roles, but if you want to make changes, you do require licensing, or if you want to add on. So, Doug, I'm about to switch over to a quick tour of OneView, so if you can let me know if there's any questions so far.
Hi.
there.
My first opportunity, but
there we go. You just had to, huh?
I did. Only one question. Are you going to talk about release level required?
Yeah, probably can. Maybe hold that, and we can cycle back to it at the end. So, is that the only question?
So far, yep.
Oh, cool. Okay. So I've switched over to our demo system. And let me just slide this down a bit here. That's my my secret screen there. So what I'm going to do is just step through some of these tabs here. So, and use it to illustrate. What I have at the top are some of the roles that I have created and assigned to this user, my Dev1 user within our Enterprise One demo system. So to start off quickly here, if you're familiar with it, on the left-hand side is what's normally the carousel. Again, you can slide that to the bottom, to the top, to the right. So I've got my favorites, any recent reports I've run. I've got some special favorites and some other ones that I've favorited as well. But the main thing for the UX1 is the left-hand side, here's my watch list information. So I have two showing in blue. So my credit view requested and sales orders with credit hold. And I've also got 200 where the credit review is overdue. So I should probably be jumping on it. Obviously, I haven't been paying attention to this. Maybe I just got my UX1 set up, and now I realize. So on the right-hand side is my analytics. So what has been set up for me is the top 10 customers by open amount and the top 10 payers by the amount that has been received. If I hover over them as well, I can see the details of them and the value, so kind of going through there. What I'm going to do as well is I'm going to double click here on the Pro Bike Shop one, and this is going to take me straight into the customer ledger inquiry. Now, I don't necessarily see it here because the grid has that field further over, but it has preloaded that customer number for me. So that is now showing up. So I've gone directly from seeing, that's an awful lot of open ones, to seeing what the open items are. Now, I have, if I want to here, this is again just a quick little tour. I have set up a personal grid as well. And the whole reason I set this up was just because if I'm looking at the open amounts, I'd really like to have them on the main screen so I can roll through and look at them and figure things out. So on my personal screen, I've moved the open amount over. I've set it to bold, and I've also highlighted the column itself. So this is normal stuff for the grid. So I've just taken advantage of it for me personally to highlight what I want. If I also wanted to get rid of the fiscal year, the period number, and move more relevant information into the view so I could see it, I could do that here as well. So I'm going to pop out of here. Now I'm going to pop in and put on my inventory cost analytical hat and go to the inventory cost analysis screen. So in here, my watch lists are set up to show me items with costs that are undefined, items with prices that are undefined, and items that are obsolete. You can also see when I hover over them the time since it was last updated. Now with these as well, I can refresh them at any time I want. And from a performance side, the queries when they're set up, you can set limits for how many records to pull back and other things. So what I'm going to do while I'm in here is some of the screens have what we call the hamburger up at the top. This is what allows me to go in and say, right, so this is based upon a query, but there are several others that I could use. I can, just by selecting a different one, get different information. I don't see a lot of difference here, but if this was by branch plan, for example, I could see that. So items with the price undefined, that's an awful lot of them. So You know, again, when I'm in here, I'm just going to go up and call up a personalized grid that I have set up that's going to show the unit price. I didn't bother to highlight it or anything here, but again, from the perspective of making it easier for users on their own or the ones that have been shared out to be able to customize the information and make it relevant to them, very powerful.
Hey, Mike, quick question while you're kind of moving along there. The actual dashboards that you're showing, are those currently out of the box, or did you have to put those together from scratch as well?
I'm an accountant, and thankfully I had to do nothing to them. These are all literally everything that we're seeing here, except for one page I'm going to show you is out of the box. So, and again, this is one of the beauties with it. So, just while I'm here as well, if you have a watch list that has a bunch of things, you also have the tab that says just which ones match, which ones have warnings, or which ones are critical. So the general accounting page that it will get to has a boatload of them. So it's nice if you've got a lot of watch lists to be able to winnow down to the ones that you should focus on. I'm going to slide over now, and it's a small company, so we wear an awful lot of hats. Today I'm going to be the benefits manager as well. In here I can see this is again out of the box. There's 30 medicals that are past due, medical enrollment year to date, dental enrollment, 401k enrollment, and employee self-service pending approvals. Here I've got the plans by enrollment type, employee and participant enrollment, and percentage by company. I'm going to use this one here. It's looking at medical enrollment. What I want to do instead is look at the dental enrollment instead. So that is now updated for the enrollment on the dental side. I tell you, when you start to get into things like this, and if you're in one of the areas that I've talked about, I think you can probably pretty easily see, one, how you can make use of some of the information, maybe just by changing the base query that it's on or creating your own, or saying, you know what, there's enough here. We will probably want to license some stuff because this is going to make it so much easier for people. And again, on the right-hand side here, we've got standard tasks that a benefits manager would be able to want to get into. So my next hat, I'm running from the maintenance, from the benefits area in HR to the maintenance yard, and I'm putting on my operations manager hat for maintenance. Here I can see I've got a couple of red ones I need to look at. I've got 13 active maintenance incidents and 5 severe ones. So these are ones where, again, rather than going into a screen and trying to check through and all that, I'm being told immediately what I need to be looking at. So this is fairly important. Just let this stuff load up. I'll just go back and check my notes here. Of course, this is live, so this is when probably somebody's running another job here. One of the things of note in here is to run this, you need an AIS server. One of the things that as you're looking to push through to this, you probably want to be doing is monitoring the usage and the performance of it. If you start to get an awful lot of use of this, you might be looking at splitting things up or increasing the memory or something. But from my perspective, or from our perspective, having to throw a little bit more hardware to make an entire organization a lot more efficient is pretty much of a no-brainer. Want to call to mind down here, first there's some incoming loads, and it's based upon the assigned to. I'm also interested in here because I'm concerned about safety within my organization, within my maintenance area. So as I'm hovering over here, I can see there's 2 incidents that had property equipment damage, one with a motor vehicle, serious injury, and a serious environmental impact, and some security ones. So I'm just going to take a look at the environmental impact one. Oh, probably clicked the wrong one, but anyway, same thing. You know, again, this is taking me right into the incidents. So from here, I can look at it, continue on if I wanted to change the screen, if I want to do a report, send something off as an email to somebody, I can do that directly from here. Let's take a look at my inventory control manager one. So again, same sort of thing, just kind of dipping our toes in here, but if I'm an inventory control person, this is telling me I've got more than 200 items that have zero inventory. I might be wanting to refine that based upon an ABC class, for example, so that it becomes a bit more relevant, but I've got that information. I know I've got 9 lots that are on hold. I've got 3 items with negative inventory, which I probably really want to look at and figure out what's going on. And I've got 5 lots that are going to be expiring. So depending upon the characteristics I set up for that, that could be within 30 days. The lots on hold status I can see by branch, plant, and by item. So I can see 1 on hold for testing, 2 for inspection, and 1 for inspection by the vendor. In my next branch plant, I've got 2 on hold for the vendor. And again, I can be drilling down by these. Same thing down here. This is showing me the expiring lots by branch plant. And I've got 4 items that are approaching the reorder point within my branch W10. While I'm in here, I can go directly into my item availability, take a look at my lots, do some track and trace on the lots, do an item ledger inquiry or an item cross-reference. So again, from an inventory control perspective, out of the box, there's a lot here. I want to touch on as well, we hear from customers a fair bit, well, this is maybe 75%, so gee, it doesn't give us everything. The flip side that I would say is, well, this is giving you 75%. If 75% of any given user or role's task can be handled with what's here, and you need to create a couple of other pages or let them use normal navigations or favorites to get to the other items, I'd say you're pretty darn far ahead right out of the box. I'm going to take a look now at my Transportation Manager one. And for transportation, this is all about arranging for shipments, getting shipments readied up, getting shipments loaded up, arranging with carriers, etc., and watching the costs. I can see that I have 7 truckloads I need to be worried about that are above 2,000 pounds. I've got 1,200 less than truckloads. I've got 5 are above the contract, and I've got parcels above 100 quantities. So, and within here again, I can be looking at them and saying, what's the percentage of sales for outbound freight? This might be a key metric for me. One of the other interesting things that's in here, this is showing me the total volume shipped by mode of transport. That's nice. I can see that less than truckload is 81%. While I'm in here, I'm going to click that to turn that off, and it's going to dynamically update it to say, okay, so based upon that, taking that out, here's what the percentages are for the rest. So makes it a little easier for me to see. So I can see by road, by truckload, next day air, ground service, and again, I can click through these to the details. Being an accountant by background, and please don't hold that against me, I'm going to go into the general accounting one. And I hope everybody will get a chuckle on this one if you're not in accounting, because this has far and away the most watch lists that you need to be concerned about. So when I was mentioning about, gee, let's winnow it down, I'm going to slip it down to just the ones that are warning. I've got 2 batches in error, 2 allocation batches in error, 12 companies out of balance. That's not good. And 102 account business unit errors. So I've also got in here, these are kind of representative, not necessarily something that you necessarily want to work with, but you know, think of it from an executive's perspective and presenting some summary information like this here. And again, my normal options on the right-hand side to be able to dive through from there. The last main one I wanted to get to was my accounts receivable manager. So again, out of the box, this is showing me from a watch list perspective, pay items overdue, batches in error, pending invoice batches, batches out of balance for invoices, receipt batches in error, pending receipt batches, and receipt batches out of balance. Some of the information that's in here, I can see the top 10 customers by open amount. I can see Continental is the top one, so I'm just going to drill into that. While I am here, again, I can call up a personal grid that I've set up. And I can also, while I'm in here, let me just show you a quick taste of forms personalization. So this has been enabled for me, so I have the personal forms option here. I'm going to click on that. What that's bringing up is a space to let me set up my form. I'm going to make a little space down at the bottom, and I'm going to say, for myself, I don't want these fields. Let me just slide over a bit here. Oops. And then this one here, I'm going to move it back over. I could, if I wanted, collapse the size of this one as well. And if this was an actual maintenance screen, and I will touch on one of those in a second when I get to the item branch, but this is what's involved with personalizing the form. So I'm not going to bother saving this one. It's going to say, are you sure? Yes, please. Now, just to show you that these can coexist with what you probably already have, we also have, for our own internal purposes, within Team Kane, we've got our data center admin task set up as more of a classic page. So you're probably familiar with this. We didn't bother with any of the fancy icons. We're technical people and accountants. So, but I can get directly into my UDO administration, my security workbench, lifecycle management for UDOs, role relationships. With some of the items that we need to work with, and we need to set up UDCs, so we put this in here quickly, and also be able to work with tasks showing up. One thing I did want to show you is, so I'm sure you're all familiar with the FastPath. Because we have enterprise search enabled, one of the things that I can do in here is do a task search. So I've said item branch, and it showed me all of the tasks that are item branch. So I'm going to go right from here into the item branch plan. And I'm going to search for this, and then I'm going to get into the actual item branch. Now, and again, I'm not going to go through all the way on here, but this is a classic example where, from a maintenance perspective, you might want to use the forms personalization. So I'm going to go into the forms personalization, go to the lot processing tab. There's a couple on here that I want to be able to make use of on another screen. So I'm actually going to drag them down into the workspace. Make some workspace here. Drag that down. I'm going to drag that down, and I'm going to drag the description down, and I'm going to assume everything else on here I don't need. So slide over here and get rid of that tab. Then over here, I do want to have on my additional info, I don't need my ABC codes for this purposes. I do want to have my item price group, my code, and the description. And again, that's all I want on this one. So I'll come back over now to my main one. And I'm going to drag my serial number. Oops. And the code. And that up here. And the same thing. Now, you're probably thinking the same thing I did when I first worked with it. It'll be nice in the next revision when you can kind of rubber band and move them all at once. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to save that, and I'm going to call it short form item branch. And that has now been saved. If I want as well, I can say I want to publish this. So publishing it will make it available to others once it has been approved. So you don't have to worry about this stuff going willy-nilly around the world or around the organization. There is control on it. I can see now I've got a single screen that's got all of that information. So this is really handy. I'm going to dive back into the presentation here, Doug, but maybe a good time to check and see if there's any other questions. And again, just the preface here, will this cover all of the scenarios you want? Absolutely not. Will it get you a lot further than you are today? Absolutely so, would be my perspective. So, Mr. Doug, Ironman?
No additional questions, or at least no additional questions that I didn't answer directly. So,
well, God bless you, sir. So I'm just going to, sorry, I've got two screens going on here, and with my old eyes, I just need to switch this over so that I can see the big one. You know, if I was young like Doug, I wouldn't need to do this, but hey, you know, not everybody's a young pup like that. So
better than the alternative.
Yes, I suppose that's true. So mentioned at the beginning that we'd touch on security a little bit. And again, we got to this more in a previous recording on UDOs. So anyway, there are three main security areas when it comes to them. One is feature security, and this is literally, it's one spot where it's an on-off switch for the Cafe One, E1 pages, formats, OneView, queries, and watch lists. So the biggest thing, if you want to use E1 pages, you have to make sure it's turned on. There's also action security, so who can create them for their own use? Can they also publish, and can they modify shared ones? View security, so who can work with and view shared user-defined objects? And content security, and that's only for Cafe One UDOs. A couple of key concepts on it. What is delivered is secured by default. So the fact that you've downloaded the pages and you're all excited, woohoo, to go in and start playing with them, you have to enable them for somebody first. You can do the start public for many of them. Also, like anything else on the security side in JD Edwards, most commonly it's done by role and by user. Thing to keep in mind is that there are predefined roles that are provided with these when you get them from Oracle. So part of it is a matter of matching up your users with the roles that are provided, or copying these over to roles that you have in place. So the process, again, anything where a user is creating something and they want to publish them, they can request it, but there's a separate security process that is gone through to review them and to approve them. You can also move UDOs between environments. You can export them and you can import them as well. The majority of the security on this is handled within the user-defined objects, and that's this with security for that, and form and row exits from there. So feature enablement, I mentioned, this is the one screen, so that's all you need to do. But if you forget to go in here, for example, for grid formats and turn it on, nobody's going to be able to use it. So some other items, enterprise search, we touched on in what we saw within the task search, within the search box there. Overall, a little bit more technicalities under the scene for setting up additional items, but this is a single Enterprise One page. And on the page, you just start to type what it is that you're looking for. It will give you access to data, to menus, and to tasks. The items that you see on the right-hand side, so address book records, inventory items, and tasks, come out of the box enabled. With 9214, there's also an editor that is included for the fields, the tabs, the columns, and the related items. What that refers to is on the screen, if you see on the shaded blue area on the left, there's 3 little dots which give you additional tasks that you can perform, and the little eye in a circle is pops up a little pop-up window with the information. So you can control what shows up for that, as well as setting up additional categories that would be included in the search. For example, equipment information with the editor. There's also a workbench, and the workbench allows you to review the usage of this and the performance of it, so you can see what's being well used, what's not, and see how the performance is going. So a couple of other items in general. E1 Pages, Doug, I'm not sure on your side, but I'm constantly amazed when I'm working with clients and asking them, are you using E1 Pages? And by and large, the answer is no. I just don't get it, quite honestly. It's a pretty simple thing to set up. The E1 Page Composer has taken it to another level. It just simplifies things for users so much. The advanced queries, so that's just the ability to, as we saw on some of the screens, to be able to go in and set up your own queries, the user, and saving them for use later on. BI Publisher, it's interesting. It's used all the time for reports that users will create. We've seen that up until a while ago, it really wasn't ready for prime time for replacement for things like Create Form, Transform, Formscape, and all that. What we're seeing is, particularly with the changes that came out in the 915 and later releases, it really is, and certainly for outbound documents. We've replaced third-party solutions with BI Publisher in a whack of places in the last year and a half or so. One of the things, and honestly, we're just starting to get into it with the newer changes. We updated our data center about 3 weeks ago to the 9215 tools release, but the Internet of Things, or IoT Orchestrator, as it was called, is now just called Orchestrator, and it is part of the foundation. IoT Orchestrator used to be a licensed product. With Orchestrator now, it is not licensed. There's also been extensions, and we are looking to it to be a large mover in replacing third-party solutions for things like integration tasks. And if anything, like we've seen with BI Publisher, the general tools, as the releases and dots go along, more and more is going to be added into it. So this should be something big for most people. Couple of considerations in here. First and foremost, try it. It's dead simple to download. You can download absolutely every single one in one fell swoop, or be selective about it and drag some down. Things like forms personalization, just drop down to that for a sec. Right now, there's no security on it per se, so people can use it or not. There's no ability to restrict, for example, that and the user, if they're wanting to rearrange a form, nothing will stop them from moving off a field that they really should be keeping there, other than if the form itself defines the field as mandatory. So the caution or the recommendation we would have on that is, the personalization is something for power users, not end users, and then promoted and made available to the end users. Nothing wrong with having a BA or a power user in the business work with the users to find out what would be beneficial for them. It's going to be dead simple to do those tweaks and to turn it loose on them. But you don't want to turn this loose on everyone and for everyone. With the roles, you need to think about mapping the roles that have been delivered to the users and roles that you have right now. And also, if you're not familiar with Odoo, it does take a while to think through and to navigate all of the different permutations and combinations of forms, layouts, reporting codes, users, roles, and setting it up so that it's best for your organization. So our personal favorites, watch lists. We hear clients complain that, well, we have to get OneView reporting. Honest to God, the pricing for OneView is not that expensive, certainly for the foundation license. If you're smart and you're talking to Oracle around quarter end or year end, it's going to be less than that. What you can do with watch lists should so radically improve your users that I just see personally it would be a no-brainer. If I was a user and I could get access to it and I had to pay $500 for my own license, I might do it and just ask for an extra week off. Cafe One, again, a little understood. There's so much potential for that to keep users from bouncing around and to make things simpler. Forms personalization, start to work with users on this, particularly the ones that moan, and we know who they are, about bouncing between screens. You're going to be on their Christmas card list or whatever equivalent that is on Instagram these days. And going forward, likely the orchestrator. So if you're not on 9.2 or on a release that supports it, 9.2.1.4 and 9.2.1.5 are where the forms personalization came out and where the extensions to enterprise search came out and when orchestrator came out. A lot of the other items, including the UX1 roles, are available back, I think, as far as 9.1. So, but if you're looking to upgrade, normal things we cancel. What are you going to do? Is it just going to be a technical or a like-for-like upgrade? Is it going to be a like-for-like and low-hanging fruit? If you're looking at getting into UX1, starting to dabble, working with the business and how it can help it, I would strongly suggest that it be at least the like-for-like plus low-hanging fruit, and the low-hanging fruit is the UX1 stuff. Or if you've been 10 plus years, things have changed, you probably need to look at something a lot more substantial like a process reengineering. What we've worked with a number of customers on is the idea of an upgrade can be pretty daunting, and there's always the question about how much it's going to cost and what are we going to get back. Our recommendation is do a pre-upgrade analysis. You don't have to do absolutely everything, but you can look at the areas where there are pain points, where there's built-up user demand, and evaluate what you can deliver within a reasonable period of time and funds to move you forward. Users hate technical upgrades because there's nothing in it for them. There's great opportunities now to give them something. It also, from a business management perspective, gives a much better idea as to what you're going to get, and probably with a lower investment and more certainty. One of the biggest things, and those of you that go to conferences and, a pitch for InFocus, Collaborate, and user groups, people don't know what they don't know. If you're not aware as to what UX1 can do, what Cafe One is, what E1 pages are, what you can do with forms personalization, you're missing it. So your role, if you're on this webinar, is to understand it and expose the business. And if you're not, take it to the rest of the business and help them to understand it. Now, how can you simplify your upgrade? Well, first of all, you need to understand your processes. You need to know what enhancements and mods you've got out there. You need to know where you're coming from. If you don't have knowledge documents and test scripts from your last upgrade, make a point of doing them next time and keep them handy because it'll help you out an awful lot. You need to know your staffing and resources. We're working with a customer right now that is really light on the staff side and subject matter experts. Part of the process is going to be, let's see what we can do to build them up. Stay current. We've seen far too many customers that are on releases well back just because it seems more painful to upgrade. It gets more so each time. The last thing that we see missed quite often is the touch points into and out of JD Edwards. So what integration and interface points do you have? And make sure you button them all up and cover them off. And also look at what the opportunities with the new tools are to deprecate them and start using E1 tools like Orchestrator instead. How can we help? Well, fairly new offering for us is working with clients to look at UX1 for targeted areas. So it might be in your transportation, it might be in logistics, manufacturing, sales, but spend some time looking at what your users do, what's available with UX1 out of the box, and where it could be extended, and making some recommendations. Also, working on a tools release upgrade, and if you don't have an AIS server, which you're going to need, factor that in. Work with a bunch of customers on this pre-upgrade assessment that we talked about earlier. We also do fixed fee for that. We want it to be low risk, and that's including expenses. Full upgrade and migration assessments, a day or two. We've seen it go a little bit more than that in complex environments. That's on site. It's not generic. Get a full report a couple of weeks afterwards, hardware, software modules. The idea here is to give you a roadmap that you can chew on for it. Now, our marketing people and our VP of sales slipped this in on me. Wasn't sure where I was aware of it, but anyway, if you like pumpkin spice latte, apparently for the month of October or through the month of October, we're also doing a special 25% off our roadmap and upgrade workshops, and I believe that's extended to the UX1 evaluations as well. So yeah. Anyway, just something for you to think about. Very briefly on Team Kane, we've been around for coming up on 22 years now. JD Edwards is our heart and soul. In addition to the core stuff on JD Edwards, we have been a partner with Purgit for Archive and Purge and JD Edwards, World and Enterprise One for a long time. Getting a lot of traction with the ScanMan AP automation solution for E1 right now. Also from the Forza family of products, Pacman, package build automation, and self-service password reset. We do work with DWS, and that's including their Swift test solution and several other very nice ones they've got out now. If you're a spreadsheet-based organization and want a better way to do it, we've been a partner of Global Software for their spreadsheet server solution for a while. If you're in distribution or manufacturing and are not using RF in some way, shape, or form, you really should be. Be happy to talk to you about RF Smart and their integrated solution. So let's continue the conversation going forward. If the thought of going to 9.2 and exploring it makes you nervous, shocked, giddy, frustrated, whichever, we can help you out. We hope this kind of whistle tour and run through of some of the roles and the capabilities in UX1 has been helpful for you. Doug, we're right on the hour, I think, so I'll open it up and see if there's any questions that have come in.
All right. There are a couple of questions. I'll go through them quickly. First, on the release, does form personalization work with 9.2 tools, and/or does it require 9.2 app? And I do have some documentation on Oracle for that one, where it talks about that you do need the app installed as well, which I will send that over to that person to clarify that. Or Mike, I don't know if you have any other information on that one.
No, I know the forms personalization, you need to be 9.2.1.4, if I'm not mistaken. And on the app side, yeah, I think 9.2, I'm not sure if there's a dot release that is required as well. And bless you, Doug, for researching and getting these answers for me.
I had that one even. I was ready. And then another just more general question. Let's see. If you could just explain the difference between tasks versus menu control in Enterprise One.
Oh, okay. Tasks are very specific IDs within Enterprise One, so they're also, if you want to attach something to the Springboard, you need to know the task. Menu is more in the classic sense. I go back to World Days, so I think of menu G42, and then there's an item on there. So that's a menu item. So it will, for the search, it'll show you both tasks that are just out there and also the menu items. And the menus would be if you went through the classic way of looking through at the items. I hope that helps.
Yep, sounded good. And if anyone has follow-up questions, feel free to put those in, or we've got our contact information up there. You can give us a call or send us an email. But Mike, that's all the questions that came through. And I know we're a couple minutes over on time, so understand if people have to go. But Mike, fantastic job. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We know it's always tough to get an hour out of busy days, but hopefully you found this educational, and let us know if there's anything or any way that we can help you down the UX1 path.
Awesome. Here, Doug. Agreed. And be happy to answer any other questions and see any other ways you can help. Those of you that know us know that we're a knowledgeable and friendly and fair bunch. And if you don't know us, we'd love the opportunity to continue the conversation with you as noted here. So other than that, thanks everybody for your time today. Enjoy the rest of your day and look forward to talking to you.
And don't forget, talk like a pirate.
Arr, that's true, Billy. Thank you. Art, so the last little bit there, don't forget the survey on the way out, mateys, if you can help us out there. Bye.
Oh, well done, Mr. G. Well done.
All right, thanks all.